the smell of grass and leather. There were days when we'd play too. We'd cross the lines when the sun would shine and make our dreams come true. I had a glove on my hand and a girl in the stands. She stole my heart like a hit and run. It seems the world was so much simpler back then. We was just out there for fun. I pray for someone to hold your hand, and baseball in the summer, someone to walk with you when this world grows cold. Baseball in the summer, baseball in the summer.
Welcome to the BrockvMac Legendary Rivals podcast, and we're doing a Mac cast today with Geoffry Mariani, a 4-year walk-on player with the McMaster Marauders, who, like so many people, and I've said this on a few podcasts, looks probably very similar to when he was playing. So somewhere there is a fountain of youth water source that I am not privy to. Jeff, how are you? How are you doing today?
Very good. It's been I can't believe it's where we at 25 years or something like that now. And, this is crazy to think it was that long ago. I haven't changed too much. Definitely a few gray hairs, and I think this lighting actually kind of hides them. So we're good that way. But everything's good. I've been lucky in the sense of as far as health and that goes. I've got 2 kids and a wife, and everybody seems, knock on wood, everybody seems to be doing very well. So COVID was a little tough for us, but had to make some adjustments and things like that. But I'm hoping to get on the field actually today with my younger kid to have our first outdoor practice. So supposed to be 12 or 13 degrees, so it should be fun.
Sounds like the sound of coaching, which is resonating through my ear, because just about every single person tied to these 2 programs has been coaching. And I'm glad to know that you've got a lighting supervisor that makes sure that your gray hair is hidden. Jeff, why don't we, obviously it's a story, and a quarter century is a long time, right? Like 25 years is a long time. And, but you had a story likely that was almost 20 years old prior to arriving at McMaster. Why don't we start with just the basics, where you grew up and, how you developed the love for sports and baseball. And, I think people would love to hear your story before there was a McMaster in your front windshield.
Yeah, I'm from Toronto, west end of the city. I've been here, and I still am in Toronto. Only a few minutes from where I grew up. I imported my wife from London, so she was willing to make the move. I grew up playing ball. My dad, in particular, was very athletic and encouraged me to do a range of sports. I did baseball, basketball, tennis, golf. I did soccer as well too. So I think that kind of had an impact on coordination and abilities and everything. I find now, you have to be playing a certain sport since a very young age in order to make certain teams. And whereas when I grew up, I don't know whether it was just, I kind of had a decent athletic ability, and I was able to jump on teams here and there and make it work. But definitely, he was my little league coach in the house league, and definitely encouraged me. And he was the one that, Dad, let's go out and play ball or play basketball or something like that. We lived in a ravine lot. So we were able to, just walk around to the big park behind us, and used to, pitch to me or shag balls. And I remember just like, we used to have 20 tennis balls at that point, and it was just, popping out of my glove left, right, and center. But at least I was, being able to track things and learn from that, and try and go and pick them all up afterward was another story. But definitely came from him, and that's where I started. I didn't do a lot of rep sports when I was younger. I did a ton of school sports. I went to Royal St. George's College in Toronto, and they had a very good athletic program. And I played 3 sports almost every year through them: soccer, basketball, and then softball. Didn't have a baseball team, so I picked up the baseball sort of along the way, but loved the idea of the softball. Loved hitting. Was a little bit slower, so I was able to, by the end, just place the ball sort of where I wanted to, and shift the defense one way and pop it the other direction, and just have so much fun with it. And I used to actually play outfield because that's where most of the balls were hit. It was more fun. Who wants to play left field when they're younger? But at that point, it was like, okay, well, I'm going to get 20 balls a game, so why not play out there and have some fun with it? So,
was it more of a was it fastball where there are
no? It was slow pitch.
Okay.
I mean, and even it wasn't really a real like arcing pitch. It was just kind of 6 feet in. It was more an idea of everybody gets to hit, and whoever plays the best defense kind of wins the game. And it was a slightly different ball. It was a softer ball. Like, you couldn't hit tons of home runs. It was more like if you were hitting line drives and getting hits that way, then that was the strategy behind the play. So. Yeah.
So did you have, you're playing 3 different school sports at Royal St. George's, and did you have a coach or anyone that kind of stood out while you were, in addition to your father, in terms of being an influence on, you thinking the game or just making use of your natural ability that's still developing at this point?
I think maybe not necessarily in baseball. I actually had a couple soccer coaches that were very influential as far as just teaching, proper, warm up, and just the sportsmanship, and that type of respect and that kind of thing, as opposed to the actual skills. Yeah, I mean, we learned stuff. It was great. I mean, I'd never played soccer. Came on, and I learned a ton that way. But what sort of sticks in my mind is that like when you're up, 10 goals or whatever. I mean, everybody plays with their off foot, and so you're not trying to run up the score or any of this kind of stuff. You're trying to be respectful, and I think that's sort of a lot of what I learned. From a baseball point of view, it was actually outside of the school that I learned. I had one really good coach. I'm trying to remember, was it the grade 8 or grade 9 that I played at a higher level rep? I made a rep team, and what I learned that year as far as mechanics and baseball knowledge and stuff, I'll always remember that. I mean, as an awkward, grade 8, grade 9, it was socially awkward. It was awful, but I learned a ton. And I remember there was one point in the season where I was like, Mom, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I feel so like deflated and stuff like that. And my mom was actually the one that said, you know what, you made a commitment to this team. You need to stick through this. And I'm so glad that she did, because I learned a ton that year. And, I think that was, I kind of took that through into the softball side of things, and was able to help some of my teammates with mechanics and throwing and hitting more particular. I was never a pitcher, but I guess in house league, I don't know if that counts or not, but I think everybody was a pitcher in house league. But that was the sort of a defining moment for the baseball side of things. And I had actually had a very good basketball coach who played at the whatever the equivalent of the OUAA is, out in Halifax. So he played at a high level. So I learned some more mental tricks and stuff like that as far as game strategy and that kind of thing, but on the basketball side of things. So I seem to be able to take different coaching experiences and learn from them. And I don't know, it was an interesting growing up, bits and pieces of from here and there and everywhere that I was able to gain sporting knowledge, I guess, in general. So
I think it's super cool that you sorry about that. I think it's super cool that you bring up your mom. There's lots of examples of people who, were influenced by their fathers or brothers or, siblings in particular. But, moms play such an important role in sports and, finding ways to kind of, be enthusiastic and keep our spirits up and stuff. And I think that that's, a really cool way of looking at things. How big a role were your parents in not only getting you loving this stuff, but then supporting you when you got into different sports? Because I think this is something that is really interesting, given that you're one of the few people we've talked to who grew up in Toronto, and Toronto has a different infrastructure system. It's harder to get to parks or arenas at times. And the experience is a little bit different than people who grew up in a suburb where it's the arenas down the road and that kind of stuff. Maybe talk a little bit about how your parents were, supporting your various things at this point. You're playing soccer, softball.
Both. I'm an only child. So, I had their attention for sure. But both my parents supported me athletic. My mom was a teacher and she always encouraged extracurricular stuff and, wanted me to do stuff all the time. Like there's none of this sitting around after school doing diddly all. She was very much, get out, do stuff. And, in both cases, they were, at the games, whatever sport it was, they were there driving. I remember there was times where my dad would, leave work a little bit early, pick us, watch the last half of the game, whether it's soccer, basketball or whatever, and then end up driving, 6 of us home, 3 in the trunk of the car, the SUV, and 4 in the back across. It didn't matter back then, but it was like, okay, I need to ride home. So, because we were coming from different parts of the city, and to take the subway, it was, it saved you an hour of travel time if you get a ride, kind of thing, rather than all these different commutes. But he was certainly there. My dad did a little bit more. My dad did a little bit of coaching as well, and more so the baseball, but he was around, and luckily I had them both. I still got them. They are still around. My dad actually coaches swimming, so myself, him, and my oldest son, who was on a swim club, this is the second year now, we coached my youngest on the school swim team. So it's kind of 3 generations, but we like to have some fun with that. And that's an interesting challenge to sort of manage everybody. But it's fun. There's nobody else that does that. So it's a good little story that we have with the 3 of us. So even my older son's 16, so he's in grade 10, and my youngest is in grade 7. So we have some fun with that.
I would say when they don't like what dad says, they'll run to grandpa.
Yeah. Well, and even when brother says it to the younger one, it's even harder. So, uh, kind of he kind of have to split them up, but he does take it pretty well, and it's sort of sometimes the way it comes across is not the most delicate, shall we say, but he likes to boss his little brother around a little bit sometimes too. So he takes advantage of that coaching situation, but trying to get him to reel it in a little bit. But
That part's hard.
yeah,
It's the relationship between brothers is always an interesting one and an interesting dynamic. They kind of spur each other on. They are at times frenemies because they get on each other's nerves, and it's a fun dynamic. So I think that's pretty interesting. Jeff, what do you recall? As you're progressing through high school, like did you have a profession that you wanted to chase, or was it just I'm going to find a good school and figure it out there?
yeah, I didn't really have anything on the radar at all. I went into school with just like, okay, well, what do I like to do the most? What subjects are my favorite? And go with that. So I went into the geography program, and there was a double major in geography and geology. I like geology. I had my rock collection when I was younger and that kind of thing. And so, I just kind of stumbled upon the area that I'm in right now. I basically applied to a few universities. Mac was close enough to home that my parents could come down and take me out for lunch, and I could or I could go home for the weekend here and there. But it was still far enough that they weren't at my doorstep every day. So it was a really good experience for me, and I love the atmosphere at Mac. So it was a very, and I don't know, I think it was kind of a random experience that I actually visited the school, and I don't know why we ended up going there, whether it was something through high school that we were going to different spots to see different universities. I did end up seeing quite a few before I went out, but I just got a very good feelings like, oh yeah, I could go here, so
Is
um,
there a school that you visited that you can recall that maybe gave you the reverse feeling? Because I definitely have a story of um,
um,
doing a campus tour where I was like, I'm never going here. You
yeah,
know,
I think if anything, U of T, only because it was so huge. I don't remember even anything sticking in my mind that negative, but it was certainly coming from being an only child, coming from a very small high school. I like that relatively small atmosphere. So that's sort of why I connected with that. Um, there was a couple other schools that were further away that were, yeah, I could do here, but then when it came down to flights and all this kind of stuff, I was like, I don't know about that. So, anyways, it was just ended up being great for me, and met my wife there, and she was we actually knew a ton of common friends, but didn't actually meet till fourth year, so it was kind of interesting that way.
it's amazing the
Yeah,
amazing amount of relationships on the Mac team that started at school. So that's
yeah,
we'll dive into that a little bit deeper. Yeah, definitely the school that I just didn't apply to after our um, and I think probably it was the same at your school. They arranged, like, your friends would say, okay, we're going to go visit Laurier, today, and the guidance department would set it up, and you'd go there, and the school would give you a tour of the campus and some of the faculties and stuff. And the one that just, you know, I couldn't bring myself to go to after was Waterloo, the University of
mhm.
Waterloo. And a couple of reasons. One is I was horrible at math, and then they sent out people from the math faculty to lead our tour. Um, but also, it just felt wrong for me. I was interested in business, and Waterloo was a science and math kind of a school at that time, and very, very, very academically
big
grounded.
engineering program and everything.
Yeah. It was.
I remember. Yeah.
I was just like, if I went there, I was going to fail out. It's just not. It was not going to be my thing. But are you in residence in first year? And do you recall which of the famous McMaster residences you were in?
I was in Woodstock first and second year. I ended up staying for a second year in there. And that's actually where I met Brad. Brad was in Woodstock with me, and I think he's 2 years older than me, so he was in third year. He had his own room and all this nice stuff and in residence, and he kind of, and this is one thing that I do remember about him, and he was such a kind soul, because he's I'm there, I'll meet you for the game, I'll kind of pick you up for practice and we'll go together, and just to kind of get my feet wet, because I didn't really know anybody there. There was a few kids from my high school that went, but it was very much a fresh start for me when I went to Mac. So yeah, he was a great little. I mean, he was a great buddy to have to help me out and hang out with, and see him in the hall and residence and chat, and do we have practice today? I can't remember. Do you remember what time it is? And this kind of thing. So and then he would occasionally get us a ride over. So rather than walking, or I think I my second year, or even partway through the first year, I was able to get my rollerblades from home. So I rollerbladed over, and which was fine too. So, but it was really, really home. I had a great experience in residence for first and second year. And, you mentioned earlier, I was a walk-in, so got to residence, found out, baseball tryouts were happening. I'd already missed one. And unfortunately, this was the year that they played at the Sky Dome. So I hadn't made the team or anything like that yet, so I didn't get to go to that. So I was a little disappointed with that. But had a couple other tryouts, and don't know what they saw about me, but I did end up making the team, and had a lot of fun, made some good friends, and again, it was just a different atmosphere. It was a different group of people that we hung out with at the bar, whether it was, there's teammates there from the bar versus like residence friends versus, your faculty friends. So it was kind of a mix of different people depending on where you went and that kind of thing. And tonight's a baseball night out, or tonight's a residence night out, or whatever it is. So you kind of move it around. So.
Well, it's great that you walked on, and they obviously saw something in you. Do you remember your first interactions with Coach Graves or Coach Romanowski?
I don't know. Certainly, first in bits and pieces here and there. I don't remember the tryouts at all, really. I remember at one point losing my baseball glove, so I had to find another baseball glove at one point. So I was all flipping out because it was a glove that I'd never used before, and trying to go to practice. And I always remember with Henry, there was one drill that he would like put you at third base, and sorry, I'm getting the thumbs up here for some reason.
It's okay.
And just like for 5 or 8 or 10 minutes straight, just hit ground balls, deep balls, left, right, coming in, going back, and by the end of this, you were exhausted, like just like I couldn't, like gasping for air kind of thing, right? Like it was just like, and I still remember that. And as far as, and he was like, okay, next person, go. And he would do it. I don't know how he did it. I mean, he was, I mean, I don't know how old he is now, but like he wasn't a young pup back then either, too, right? So, but he loved it, and he would just grill you and grill you and grill you, and make a few tweaks along the way and help you out, and but it was that's what I remember about Henry, and then his loving personality too, and and very different. I mean, when we played compared to now, like the you get hit by the pitcher, well, the next pitcher up hits you back, right? I mean, like this kind of, and you went into second base hard, and you took the guy out, and like there's none of that anymore, right? So it was that kind of gritty mentality that I remember as well too, only because it's a contrast to how I coach and how I have to coach this year or now, I guess. So it's an interesting personalities, and I don't remember learning, like, as far as mechanics and stuff, learning a ton of stuff. I think at that age you were, and you're playing with inter-county league, and you're playing with AAA and elite and all this kind of stuff, and they'd already done that. They'd already learned this kind of stuff. So it wasn't like they were teaching, going back to the basics and teaching stuff that you hadn't picked up. So again, I don't know, because I didn't play a ton of like rep ball and that kind of thing. I don't know how I ended up making the team. I guess it was more athleticism and something that they saw, and was able to, whether I was coachable at that point, I don't know. I'm not sure. But it was, I learned that with them, it was more strategies. When do you run the guy? When do you do a double play? Or when do you hit and run? When do you, bunt? When do you, this kind of stuff. So we did a lot of bunting. I remember that working. I mean, I was you would have sort of been a utility guy anyway. So if I was coming off the bunch, I would be expected to try and lay something down, right, to get a sack bunt and move someone around or whatever it was. So learned a lot of bunting and that those over those couple of years, and so and again, for whatever reason, I draw a lot of blanks when it comes to the actual seasons and stuff. I mean,
it's all good because it kind of
there, but
it does kind of blend together, which because especially when you've got a 4-year career, you'll obviously have been there in a national championship year, which we've profiled pretty well at this point.
Yeah, that was my second year that I was there. So
yeah, and obviously, slaying the Brock Dragon is something that you guys will have accomplished that you'd be pretty happy with. But I want to touch more on some other things that we haven't touched on in other podcasts. So give me your, given that you kind of identified that you were pretty well ingrained in the Mac social calendar there, which, tell me what your top 3 favorite places to go in university were.
I'm trying to remember. I think like the John was the main campus bar, and they also had the Rat, which was another one as well too. And living on residence, those were great because you didn't have to go downtown or anything like that. I'm trying to remember. There was another one. I think it was called the Crowbar, which I think only was there for a year and then closed, and that was relatively close. So I think definitely the Rat and the John were where we spent most of the time. I think there was a couple. There was one in Hess, and I don't remember the name of that pub. And then there was something called the Thirsty Camel, which was a laundromat and a pub. So I mean, it was more sit down, have a beer, do your laundry kind of kind of place. So, yeah, I guess I don't remember.
For the record, I don't understand how the concept of the pub laundromat didn't catch fire and pop up in every, But the downstairs John, which is kind of famous at McMaster, describe what you remember of the John. And because I think, I've been there a few times, and it's unique to Mac. It's just kind of this, from what I recall, a little bit dark in there, and it was kind of small and cramped, and everyone had a grand old time there. But tell me what you remember about the John.
Yeah, I mean, it was it was small, it was dark, it was I mean, they had a stage to dance on, they had a little dance floor, and then there was, I don't know, a few tables, and then a lot of extra area to kind of mingle around. Very good atmosphere. Everybody would, and I don't know whether they had people limits but it was always packed. So whether they went over fire code, I don't know. But because it was on campus, you got a whole range of not only ages but also different people, different residences and everything. So what you saw there, again it was sort of like different groups, whether it was people coming off campus, on campus, whether it was people from residence, whether it was people that lived at home, and so you got a range of people that you saw. And I remember a couple of my housemates in third and fourth year were bouncers and managers, so remember never having to wait in line, just kind of go in and hey, how you doing? This guy's being an idiot, I'm gonna kick him out, this kind of thing too.
That is like achieving your master's degree in university, when you can find a relationship that allows you to skip the line.
Yes, exactly.
That's amazing. And Jeff, tell me a little bit about and I think this is an interesting another area that we haven't touched on before, which is when you get to the end of your stay in residence, do you decide to get an off-campus house with friends that you met in residence, or were they're friends from your faculty, or were they baseball guys like we've heard?
These were residence friends that we became very close with. My housemates there was two from first year that stayed. One was my resident mate, I guess, in second year. And then there was 3 first years, like from my second, so a year younger than us, that we ended up living together with. One of them, her boyfriend played for Brock, so that was always a fun. Ryan Villers, I don't know if.
Oh yeah, Ryan is the current president of St. Catharines Minor Baseball. So
is he? Okay, yeah. So that was always fun when he would come down. We'd give him a hard time and that kind of thing. And one of the other housemates that I had, I went to high school with her brother, so that was, I always gave him a hard time when I saw her or saw him anyway. So, but still in touch with a couple of them. So that's good, lasting relationship there. But I mean, Brad was the only one in Woodstock from residence that I knew. There was a few others that were there, but those are sort of end up being closer to those kids than some of the other people. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So tell me about another great thing in your life. Obviously, you're floating around campus. You're progressing through your degree at this point. You're well established on the baseball team, because when you're a 4-year player, that's a long run with a university varsity team. But somewhere in here, you end up meeting your future wife, and you've talked about that you had lots of common friends and you just didn't kind of get into each other's circle. Tell me how that happened.
Actually, we met in fourth year at a house party, and found out that like one of her housemates I actually lived with in first year residence. So I knew him, and then, again, a bunch of common friends. One of the bouncers that I knew was a good friend of hers. And anyways, long story short, we met in the summer. Wasn't really on the ball, talked the whole night, but didn't get her number or anything like that. And I saw her at the John, like during Frosh Week that fourth year, and reconnected, and never was too worried about it, but ended up, oh, maybe this is something. And so and then sort of dated it all through fourth year. We did college programs afterwards. So she was in London and Windsor for 3 years, and I was in Toronto for 3 years. So very close, stayed together. And then finally after that, we got married. So, but it was funny. Like, I'm sure we met or seen each other, or, knew people, but never connected the whole rest of the time. Like, even one of my housemates was in the science program with her, and they were good friends that way, and that kind of thing too. So it was a mismatch of overlapping, but maybe it just was the right time.
Thanks to your inability to take her number, like 99%.
Who knows what happened?
Did you end up having your wedding reception in the John, because you owe the John now, I think, a royalty, right?
No, we didn't. She's from London, so we had said stuff in London, but that was kind of the meeting point, especially when she was in Windsor and I was in Toronto. So I ended up doing things from there, and a lot of her family is from London and down in Tillsonburg and Langton area. So kind of.
It's amazing. It's fun to hear the sliding door nature of that. Jeff, you did you graduate in? You've talked about geography and geology as your combined interest.
Yeah.
What happens after you wrap up a 4-year McMaster playing career? What's next for you?
So I didn't. Did some applications for post-secondary and or post-grad, and ended up doing a college course in gemology. So went from the geology to gemology, which is more gemstones and treatments and identification of stones and that kind of thing. So I did a year there, and then ended up the instructor from there. His wife was doing a mat leave, so I went and helped in the store, and then from there I worked in the wholesale jewelry industry for, I want to say 13 or 14 years. Kind of had my midlife crisis, didn't know where I wanted to do, needed a change. So went into some property management. I'd done, summer jobs and stuff with construction, and, so I had some renovations and stuff like that, and renovation experience and construction experience. So I thought maybe this was somewhere to go. I had a family friend that owned a few rental properties, so did a little bit of that. Hated it. It was awful. All the tenants did was complain and whine, and so that lasted a couple of years. And so I was like, okay, well, what do I want to do? I don't know. So I went back in the jewelry industry, did some retail. At this point, the kids are, I want to say grade 7 and grade 4, something like that. So I took a job that was really close to home, as far as the retail location, a high-end jewelry store, and learned watches, which was something new. I'd never done watches and stuff, high-end watches, Rolex, Patek, some of these crazy expensive things that no one can get because they're so expensive, and the gray market is ridiculous these days. And did a little of that, and then COVID hit. So both my wife and I were working out of the house with 2 kids, trying to manage their online schooling. And, wasn't working. I remember, leaving one morning, and I don't know, I forget how old he was, whatever, he was 10 at that time or 9 at that time. He was sitting on the Chesterfield, and I swear the whole day he did not move. He hadn't eaten lunch. He hadn't done anything. He just was playing there. I'm sure he was video gaming as well too. And I was like, okay, you know what? This is not happening here. So ended up leaving that position and going on my own. So started a new jewelry business, custom jewelry design. So I'd done some design work. I had the knowledge of the trades and everything through the wholesale side of things. So picked that up again, and went on my own. Had the flexibility working from home at that point, and was able to get things started and able to manage the household. My wife was downtown. She worked in the hospital, and was able to make it work that way. So had to be a little flexible with COVID and the mental side of things for the kids. A little bit of depression, I think, didn't help. They weren't running around. They weren't playing. So had to manage a little bit of that as well too. So learned a little bit of the mental health side of things from talking to people and helping things. And so, and then then right now, once sort of COVID hit again, business is doing a little bit better, starting to get the repeat customers. Really enjoying what I'm doing right now as far as the designing and managing the trades. I don't do a lot of the goldsmithing per se. I do subcontracting or subcontract a lot of it out. Only because I find that there's a bunch of different trades and each of them specialize in certain things. So I've in the past, anybody that said they did everything, I find they don't do anything really well. So found my trades that I like to use and do that kind of thing. And so I've been able to do that. My wife actually took a slightly different job, but still working for the hospital, but is an analyst now, did some computer stuff. And so she's working upstairs and I'm working downstairs now. And so kind of switched, and the kids are off at school, right? So it's switched things around a little bit, but certainly allowed for the coaching, which I love right now. And that's really giving me joy, whether it's swimming or basketball, or I'm coaching both the kids baseball. So we're just kind of getting into the swing of that. So,
it takes guts and courage to be an entrepreneur. It's something that you undertake where there's no guarantee what's on the other side, and there's days where it's difficult, because it's you literally are walking across a tightrope sometimes without a net.
And I was lucky enough that because my wife, her job was with the University Health Network, so she had, the benefits and everything that way. So was able to be a little bit more flexible. Now that I'm kind of getting a little bit more established, she was able to start her own side gigs. She has a baking business that she does on the side, so I get to sous chef with that in my spare time. But you're right. I mean, it was a big decision to, okay, how are we going to financially do this, right? We came from 2 salaries down to, 1 and a partial salary, and certainly the jewelry industry, there's certainly some investment involved in getting things going, but it was something that I always had in the back of my mind, did a little bit here and there for friends. And, so I had some stuff set up, but a lot of conversations with, other entrepreneurs, what do I need to do, this kind of thing as well too. So and that's actually helped her. So get her started. I was able to help get things going with her side gig too. So it's
let's rechristen the Mars tech incubator hub, or the Communitech one in Waterloo, and it's now located in Western Toronto, where you're springing a whole slew and generation of new entrepreneurial endeavors, Jeff. And you can't do it without the support of your partner. So,
No.
I think, you likely have come closer together, not just physically, but in this whole process, because you're supporting each other, and then that's allowing you to be more involved with your kids' lives, which is, I think something that a lot of people might sit on the fence about, but it's important for them to hear from people who are starting to come out on the other side of the tough days of it, and understand that, if you follow your conviction and you have some courage, a lot of times your decisions are ratified by the results, right? You start to feel the results, and then everything feels right, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, certainly from a work business, balance, it certainly helped. We were both running around crazy, and this allowed us a little bit more flexibility, actually. As much as starting a business or two businesses now, the stress of that, on the backside of the family life was a lot less stressful, because, I can stay home if Ethan is sick, or I can, go to the grocery shopping now, rather than trying to do it at, 8:30 after the kids are in bed, or, like that kind of thing, the flexibility here and there, and able to get a workout in the middle of the day, as opposed to try and get it done at 6:00, or, whatever it is. Right. So, it allows you to try and balance. And I think certainly from a mental side of things, it was a good choice for us. We've been able to manage it. And, to your point, my wife has been a huge supporter, and, hopefully I've been supporting her on the other end as well too. And managed to make it work between the two of us. So, yeah.
Well, in about 6.5 months' time, that we're all going to be knocking for her to bring some of her baked goods to a certain gathering in St. Catharines, Ontario. Jeff, talk to me about coaching. Do you have a philosophy that, I think that we all grew up in an era of hard coaching. Okay. Everything was authority figure, and as a player, respected that authority, but there was a lot of being told how you do things, and it wasn't such a collaborative process. It was more learn, respect, and be held accountable, kind of a formula. But it's a different formula that's being applied now a lot of times, because kids are more immersed in information. They're more used to having dialogue with authority figures, where they question why things are done a certain way and how things are done. Tell me a little bit about what you bring as a coach, and how was that influenced by your playing career, or what you learned at Mac?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the initial aspects that you were taught, like you mentioned, with respect and going over the drills, being told what to do. I mean, there still is a certain component of that. So, I can't just have these 12-year-olds running around and not doing just doing whatever they want, right? So I certainly have a structure that I like to follow, with proper warm up and proper routine, and doing certain basic things at the beginning of the warm up or beginning of the practices and stuff like that. And and there is that certain aspect of respect, not necessarily, I mean, yes, I like the respect the kids respecting me as a coach. But I find that respect is earned based on how you're teaching them and how you're coaching them, right? So, you try something new, you teach them, you get them to learn. If something's not being learned in a certain way, then you correct it. You encourage them. Okay, yes, you're doing this right. Here's something to improve on. Yes, that was good. As opposed to that shit, you shouldn't do that, and you got to do it this way. So there's a little bit of back and forth, as you said. The kids do question, especially the older ones. We have discussions. Okay, how do you, whether it's doing a split finger or something. Okay, so how would you grip it? Or okay, let's try this grip, or let's do this. What did you learn on YouTube? How did that influence certain things? So the older kids definitely are bringing certain things like that into the mix, and I'm learning stuff as I go as well too. Certainly having gone through it with the older one helps me with the younger one. The mistakes I learned with him, I've hopefully fixed and gone at certain things a different way, and try to find different kids respond differently, and as opposed to again, when we were, everybody did the same thing, didn't matter what kind of kid you were. It was this is the way we do it, this is the time thing. Whereas now, you kind of identify them as, okay, this guy learns better this way, this guy learns better this way, so how can I incorporate those things in the coaching and in that aspect of it. So I still like to teach that respect. I still like to, I not only am I coaching, but I'm also trying to teach them how to be gentlemen as well too. You don't run up the score. You don't, if the kid's pitching, you're not yelling at him, and you're being a little respectful, letting him do his thing. As much as we're taught with the old school of sliding hard into second base, you can't do that, or you can't take the guy out at first or at home anymore, right? You still have to teach them respect, and to respect each other as a team, but also respect each other, the other team as well too. Guy made a good play, tip your cap, that kind of thing. Somebody's injured on the other team, clap for them when they get up and get back on the field. Little things like that I found are important to teach, and they don't maybe not necessarily get in other sports and in other activities. So certain things like that I like to try to instill in them, shaking hands at the end of the game, this kind of thing.
Well, those fundamentals and that etiquette of the game is really important, because there is a culture that's there now where there's a lot more talk, banter, yipping from the bench, that kind of stuff, and our era.
I'm not a big fan of that. I if you want to support your own players, that's fine. Cheer them on, be loud, crazy about that. But I'm not a big fan of the trash talk, and I mean, I'm a pretty low key. I'm serious about baseball, and sometimes I think I'm too serious. Sometimes, especially the younger kids, are like, "Oh, we got to do this again," like, But as opposed to like, okay, let's play football today in baseball practice. Like they want to do that kind of thing. But I think there is there is a seriousness about the sport, and that's partly what I'm teaching them is how to compete, how to be. You're here because you made the team, and you're you're a good player. I want to develop you. Nothing I don't take any pride greater than in seeing how a kid improves over the year. You know, I love when I get to say to the other coaches, look, we practiced that in practice, or we showed him that, and look how well he did it in the game. Like that's such a great feeling that you're able to see that improvement or skill or whatever it is that you've been able to show them and they've picked up. So to me, that's the biggest feel good of coaching. I mean, yeah, winning is fine, and but I mean, they are still kids, especially the younger kids. You have to make sure. I'm still a big component of fair play and this kind of thing, and player development as far as across the board, and this kind of thing. Certainly at the younger ages, for sure. I'm not into pitcher onlys at U13, right? So everybody tries to pitch.
You've clearly never seen me play. I was a
So,
pioneer of pitcher only. They're like, move that guy out away from a bat or a field. I get it. And it's to a. Wayne Gretzky is very famous for saying, he believes that people should play multiple sports, and he did. He was a baseball player and a hockey player.
Yeah.
And treasured both of them equally for different reasons, obviously. And, I think there's a diversity of experience, and, I think you learn different muscles, you learn different experiences. The games are different. Having played baseball, I played tons of sports when I was in high school. So I played on the football team, the volleyball team, the basketball team, and baseball. Baseball I stumbled into in my last year. But, they're all completely different types of experiences. Volleyball was a game of momentum. Basketball was a game of tactics. Football was just like incredibly intense and like a collision-based sport. And baseball was somewhat more cerebral and a little bit more about the individual batter between the pitcher and the hitter. So, I think you become a better competitor when you do multiple things, kind of like you did when you were growing up. You learn that there's certain elements that are common in all of it, and that's pretty unique. But I read a great quote from Chuck Noll, who was a Hall of Fame football coach, who said that the pleasure needs to come from putting in the work. And that brings me to, your ex-teammate, Brad Reeson, who would go out with his dad every night and hit and take 100 swings. His dad would throw him 100 balls, and he would put on those, I don't know if you remember, he had those ridiculous leather work gloves as opposed to batting gloves that he would put on. Yeah. And, but Brad would, he could be not feeling great. But he would still put in the work because he took pleasure in the work of learning. And then it translates onto the field, obviously, with a great hitter, a great performer. But if you can program or get the kids to a point where they love the work that they put in as opposed to the results, the results speak for themselves. You put the work in, you get the results.
Yeah.
I think that's a really healthy direction in life, not just on the sports field. I think if you take joy in your work, everything else will fall into place a little bit. And, I'm sure
certainly, I see it with the younger and like having the two kids, and, teaching them those routines, teaching them the basics, teaching them, how to make adjustments, teaching them how to play, how to think for themselves, that kind of thing. It may not look like much when you're 12 or 13, but I remember last year, the group of kids that my older son played with, I don't know whether it's a maturity thing too. They're 15 now, or then all of a sudden they were there to play. They wanted to be there. They wanted to put the work in. They fed off of each other. Like, it wasn't like a nag to, okay, did you do your sprints to get loose? Did you do your band exercises? Did you do this kind of stuff? It was the coach and I were talking, we turned around and they're doing it. Like, didn't have to say anything. It was just, it came from within. It came from all of them together. So, and I mean, again, it was huge. It was just like, okay, we must have done something right the last 2 or 3 years, because all of a sudden now they're doing what they're doing. Right. And, again, that's that whole mentality of, life skills, right? Trying to teach them those things. And as you just said, being able to take that learning, the determination, and translate it into work or something else, whether it's schoolwork, whether it's a job, have those goals, set those goals and that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, it was such a good feeling from a coach's side of you to see that last year. So
That's good. Self-motivation is the highest level of motivation. You start with, the stick and consequences, and then you add the carrot in eventually. So, positive reinforcement. And if they don't, but they graduate beyond those things, they'll be self-motivated, which is a wonderful place. I'm going to pivot a little bit. You and your wife are both got lots on the go, obviously, because there's goals ahead for you. What is it that you want to get accomplished moving forward in life, Jeff?
It's a good question. I guess, immediately, I'm still enjoying the coaching, the time spent with the family. I've kind of got a few more years, left of that before university kicks in and they're off. It'd be nice to sort of, at that point, being able to ramp up my own business. So that's kind of, it's a little bit on the back burner right now. Certainly could be doing more, but I'm busy enjoying life with the kids and stuff like that. So, that would certainly be a next goal for me to take a little, figure out what the next steps are to increase business wise, because I am enjoying doing what I'm doing, and I am enjoying the jewelry design that I do, and I'm a rock geek, so I love the stones. I love the looking at the nice material, the nice all that kind of stuff. So I think that sort of, I'm not at that retirement planning stage yet. I haven't thought about that. But I don't, at least over the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, that's sort of the goals and aspirations in that. And then, who knows where things go.
I can tell you one quick, easy solution for you to increase your business is one of Brock or McMaster needs to start winning championships again. That's how that happens. And then they'll have to design some custom made rings and these kinds of things. And maybe we could spur that on, because I think when people look backwards, they'll see the things that, a pattern or a symptom that is there for sustainable success. These are both programs that have been around for 30 years and have won championships. And, so we're all, a bunch of us old guys are getting together to just, the hard part is having sons of your age. You get out there and you strike out, you're going to hear about it.
I don't know. Well, it's just keeping in shape and keeping, like the kids now, like especially my older one, I'm like, yeah, when I catch him, like for pitching, like I got to put the gear on, because like if he spikes one, like I can't walk for a week. Like, I put my jock strap on, I put the catcher's gear on, you know what I mean? Like it's sort of, otherwise, like it's not like it's floating in there anymore, and the reflexes aren't quite what they used to be, and the muscles don't quite work the same way, and So
Oh,
recovery time is definitely slower.
well, I certainly, I think that will be a great motivator for all of us because we have kids, most of us of an age that, it isn't just, they don't look at us with that glow like, we were Saint Dad at any point. It's they'd love to poke at us and poke us in the ribs when we,
Yeah.
they beat us at something or they so I think there's a self-consciousness that kicks in and says, oh my goodness, I'm going to be in my uniform doing something I used to do when I was young.
Yeah.
And, I know in my case, I can't suck. I can't. My daughters will never let me hear the end of it, right?
You're going to go to the cage, and you're going to get your kids to hit you ground balls, and you're before.
Yeah. And I think it's novel that we're doing something that is a little bit unique to benefit, a couple of really great causes. And, this BrockvMac thing has always been a natural kind of a rivalry. It's one that you would have experienced up close for 4 years where the games felt different between Brock and Mac than they would have, playing U of T or any of these other types of institutions. And, it's a really good lesson also, I think, for our kids to understand that, yeah, we compete hard on that field against each other. And there were lots of intense moments, but we unite for the right things in life. And I think that's going to be, a lesson that you're living because you clearly have a family unit that's all on the same page and have been able to overcome things like COVID and entrepreneurial excellence and all that kind of stuff. So Jeff, really, it's been an incredible pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you and maybe striking you out in about 6.5 months. But, before I go, is there you may not have seen some of your teammates in 25 years. Do you maintain relationships with any of them, or are there a few that you're looking forward to reconnecting to that stick out in your mind a little bit?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I have not been good in that sense of the connection. I mean, there was the baseball inductee Hall of Fame ceremony that was sort of pre-COVID. Pretty sure. I'm trying to remember now. Yeah,
2018.
It was about 5 years ago, I think. So that was great to see everybody, or I think almost everybody that was there. So it was good to catch up and see them. So I mean, I'm not sure. To be honest, I don't know the date that this game is. I think it's all in the same time frame as the tryouts for next year that I need to be at too. So we'll have to get more information. I may just come down for half a day here and there, depending on that schedule.
It's a lot of chip and charge. So it's September 20th, 21st, and 22nd.
Yeah. So, might be the week before that the tryouts are and that kind of thing. Cause it's usually a waterfall type thing where they have the triple A and they have the double A and they have the single A and they have the select. So it's kind of, a few weeks in a row. So,
and the good thing is it's St. Catharines is fairly local and
so for me it's an hour and change to get down there and
I think it's just different. We wanted a different approach than golf tournaments and the stuff that's pretty standard. It's 30 years, it's significant. These are two towering personalities on these programs. I think everyone would want their McMaster Marauder kid to have a university and life experience modeled after a guy like Brad Reeson, who is just a really generous and amazing teammate and a great educator. I've told a story very frequently about he used to go to school for 7 a.m. every morning. And I used to say to him, why on earth are you going to school every morning? Like we would talk to each other on the commute on occasion. So I had to go into the city. Well, there's a reason why you leave at 5:30 or 6 o'clock. It's because it takes 2.5 hours to get in some days. At that point, I was commuting in from Oshawa. But Brad would call me and he'd be on his way on Kingston Road to his high school in Pickering. And see, but like, you're not going to get any traffic there, and you're going to be sitting around for an hour and a half. But he would go in because he would open the school early so that kids who may be otherwise indulging in not great life choices, hanging around in a little bit of the gang culture, if he opened the school early, they would go into the gym and do something productive with their time. So he did that for years, and that's just the kind of guy he was. Very similar to taking a younger guy under his wing and saying, hey, we'll go to practice together and that kind of stuff. So I think his personality shines on our end. Todd and I, as an educator and a principal who is just the unsinkable Molly Brown. He's a shining light in terms of perseverance, in terms of what can I do to help kind of thinking, as opposed to I'm not 100% sure and standing there with his arms crossed. He's always been that person. So it'll be a learning moment for everybody, but also a unique way to celebrate some great fundamentals. And that's what baseball is always about. It's about fundamentals. And these folks show some great fundamentals in life. So really looking forward to it, Jeff. And, West End of Toronto, that's not far from where I'm at, because I'm out near Trinity Bellwoods Park. So,
okay.
If you need a throwing mate, be prepared for, a bit of a crazy lefty. And you let me know if you want to throw a ball.
I'll put the catcher's gear on and you can practice.
You may not want me to practice. That's the thing. It's like, Mike, here is a lifetime supply of Krispy Kreme, and eat all of it before we get to September. Listen, it's been a real pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, and thanks very much for having us, and also too, just for putting together this and organizing and doing what you guys are doing to make this happen. So, certainly appreciate all the work that you guys have put into this, for sure.
Well, I think you'll have to send me the link to both your website. I'm sure you've got a website for your business and for your wife's baking business, because I'm 100% sure there'll be someone within our network that'll be tapping you on the shoulder for both. So,
if there's a spot to post it, I'll send you the details and
stuff. Please do.
Yeah. Okay.
Jeff, have a great day. It's a gorgeous day. It's sunny out, so have fun on that field coaching.
Thank you very much.
Well, the smell of grass.